Welcome back to Close Encounters of the Tech Kind. Question for you. What if Flock does not go away? None of us want it here, but a lot of people are still putting it in. Some towns are pulling it out. We have a golden opportunity. How do we control the system that is out of control? We've got a couple ideas, and we'd love to hear from you, your ideas. We'd love to have you like and subscribe, because that's the YouTube thing of how we do things nowadays. With us today, we've got Mike.
Hey, everybody.
How's it going?
And Artie, say hi for us, please.
Hi for us, please.
Nice. Artie's running the show behind the scenes and making sure that the wings stay on the plane as we fly this bird. So, Flock, it's not going anywhere. Maybe. A lot of towns are trying to rip it out. I'll bet you it's going to have a resurgence at some point. It's going to be reborn, and it's going to be a bad day for all of us if we don't take the chance to grab control of how do we regulate it, how do we control it, how do we keep it in check with balances, checks, audits, all the things that are necessary to keep us, we the people, safe. So I want to get into this just a little bit, because there's a lot of people having, for the right reasons, the heartburn that they should at being monitored 24/7. What is it, 20 billion license plates read every month? It's too many.
Goodness.
We started talking about this several months ago. There was only 90,000 cameras. There's now 120,000 Flock cameras in the country. And there's some rivals coming up. They're trying to capitalize on Flock getting voted out and saying, no, we could do it better. Mike, what if we put a control on there that says audits are required?
Yeah. Audits should be required. I mean, there's lots of, the whole founding, this is actually getting into the bigger picture of how the U.S. American government was founded. It was founded on the premise of checks and balances, that no one single entity was supposed to have complete control. And so when it comes to anything government related, that idea of checks and balances should always be in place. That if something is implemented, then yeah, we should have an audit trail to be able to say, is it being used properly? Is it doing the job that we need it to do? Is it cost effective? Is it, any number of things that we want to know about it? It needs to be checked up on. It's not just one of those, we shouldn't be doing these things where it's just, we buy into it and turn it on and let it go. That's not the way to do it.
I agree. Jackson, what kind of audit would you like to see?
Oh man, I don't know. I'm sitting here thinking about it, and I don't know what would be like an effective audit, right? Because I feel like America's kind of always been in the spotlight for like police brutality or misuse of power. All of these things it's like a constant headline in the United States. And you could argue that, most of it's the news. I would probably agree with you to some point. But there is this issue where, and it's not singular to the United States, but if you have police who aren't doing their job properly, and if they're not doing, a self-audit while they're doing the job to verify that the information that a system like Flock gives them is indeed true, or it is what it says it is, then we're just going to run into this problem all the time. There are band-aids that you can put on this problem, which would be these audits, right? But you're providing a band-aid because it's the I don't want to say crime, but the error has already been made. The police officer has made a mistake. They wrongly accused someone. Maybe they even put them in jail, whatever it might be. And now you're trying to go back and fix things, whereas we should be aiming right at the root of the problem. And that's where I'm not sure, where do you start? because I think part of it is a training problem with the police, perhaps, and I believe another part of it is the way that these systems operate, like Flock. And so I think you
Yeah.
have to attack both sides.
So LA County did an audit of their Flock system. Artie, I don't know if you've looked it up, but off the top of your head, what is the error rate LA County experienced?
I mean, this is LA County we're talking about, so I'm going to guess it's well into the double digits. I'm going to say
right.
about 65%.
Oh, close. It's actually the other way around. It's only 32.3% of license plate reads were false. It's just 1 in 3, guys. It's not that bad a deal,
Whoa.
right?
Why does LA have such a wait? Is this like why is it just LA that's having this huge problem? Because what I've heard is that other places it's like 5%, 8%. Why is LA so high?
They did a comprehensive study on it to see what is efficacy, because citizens were rising up saying, this is not cool. You've mistaken me. You've pulled me out of my car saying it was stolen. You've held me at, the way police respond to more serious threats, get out of the car, get on your knees, that kind of thing. I don't want to mention anything that'll get us demonetized, although I think the Flock subject might demonetize us. But I think it's important that we discuss this, because if 1 in 3 is wrong, that's a lot of extra work the police have to do to figure out, is it right or is it wrong? Now, on the flip side, I think that police work should be required. I don't think any AI should be in charge of saying, look at them, go pull them over, they did something wrong.
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
think that should be a clue. I think it should be a hint. I don't think it should be we 99.9% guarantee that person who, I'm not sure I can read the license plate right, but I'm 99.9% sure that person is the person you're looking for.
Mhm.
These are statistics that make me really doubt the efficacy of, did they find the kidnapping victim? Is it going to solve the Amber Alert? Is it going to solve the serious crimes that are going on? Because they might slip through the dragnet. I'm
my
not
other
advocating that they fix this. I think we should fix the overall system.
another big issue I saw was there was an instance where I don't remember anybody's names or even the place where it was at. I just remember I saw the story of this lady who was accused by a police officer of stealing someone's package. And there she has her, Ring doorbell footage of, this interaction between her husband and this police officer who was actually quite nasty to her and her husband and very accusatory when he really didn't have any good evidence on her. What he had was a doorbell footage of the person's porch that had their package stolen and showed a blonde lady that had a similar appearance to this lady. And then he had flock camera footage of her truck being in the neighborhood. He didn't even have her going up to that door or anything like that. He just grabbed some whatever information he had and then used it to point the finger at her. And so I think that's where we have a huge issue. Like, people would argue that, well, the officer did his, he didn't, like, the system didn't come up to him and say, hey, this lady stole that package, because it didn't have that proof. But he took that and then pointed at that lady and said, here's your crime, right? And so luckily she had cameras on her truck and was able to prove her innocence. And but I mean, it caused such a large disruption in her life with her job and her career. Luckily, her job and her employer was very understanding and were like, "Yeah, that's crazy." And so there weren't any big impacts there. But imagine someone in a different situation where, you know, the world isn't so forgiving, and maybe they didn't have cameras on their truck and didn't have a good way to prove that they weren't there.
Here's another idea I've got. I want to throw this out because it's brilliant that we've got this system that can correlate her to a, you were in the neighborhood, so you must be the one that's doing this. I think if you're accused, you should get access to the system to show where you actually were and say, no, I was over here. Here, look at my patterns. You should get access to that with your lawyer to mount your own defense, because 120,000 cameras aimed against an accused person, you've got no chance of proving your innocence against a dreadnought like that. Especially when, and let's be fair, that police officer was not interested in finding the truth. He took a position and he worked towards that, which is the opposite of the scientific method, right?
Right. And so that's what primarily what I was thinking of when I said earlier that you have to attack both sides, because that obviously, like, that police officer needed correction and better training and an audit on him and his actual police work, not necessarily an audit on the system, but that was poor police work. And so you have to come at it from both ends.
I have one
What
thing
my fear
I
is
would
right
like to
now.
add.
Go ahead, Artie.
I think one of the things that needs to be done in every jurisdiction is requiring a warrant to access the information, because that will keep everybody safe, and it's another check and balance for making sure that due diligence is done with the use of this data. And it's a loophole that has existed for a while now, and it's one that they're going to continue to exploit until it gets closed. So accessing the information from any of these surveillance systems needs to have a warrant behind it. I mean, yes, they can work with the police departments all they want, but if you're accessing the information, you can't go into somebody's house and say, hey, I want all your camera information now. Give it to me. They need to get a warrant, because that's procedure.
I think cops should be able to ask you, can I have your camera data? But they can't compel it.
Mm-hmm.
And
I feel like that's how we've always operated. People who have
Yeah.
CCTVs everywhere. I mean, any business will have their own camera systems for their own surveillance, but that doesn't mean that an officer can come without a warrant and just demand that information and then link it up to, every other camera in the United States to then run it by an AI.
I like the idea of a warrant. Problem is, when time is of the essence, like in a Amber Alert, to get a warrant might take half an hour, and that person will be out of the town or maybe worse.
Right.
There's got to be something. It's like maybe a retroactive warrant where you run it, you catch them, you use the camera to develop the probable cause to pull over somebody. But then it can't work the way our courts have worked till now, because courts have never had this power before. Police have never had this power before. I think there should be a watchtower on top of these watchdogs. I think there should be somebody making sure that they're doing the right thing. Who should that be?
Literally not the people running these companies.
Not
think,
AI.
yeah, it's a really hard question, because like an idea like that sounds good, right? Like a retroactive, there will, like, maybe there isn't a check and a balance right at that moment, but you know that there will be. But then the question becomes, okay, well, what's the penalty if that if that search wasn't warranted, right? If they determine that, hey, you actually shouldn't have been able to, search this database for whatever it was. what's the penalty going to be? Because if it's just a penalty to like a fine to the police department, okay, well, that's just taxpayer money. Um, how are we actually going to properly discourage and check these warrants or these
Maybe a
audits?
3 strikes you're out. You call it wrong 3 times, you're done. I mean, if I went and created a false report that got somebody arrested, I go to jail. We've got laws against that. So if this technology is creating false reports, who pays that price? They've written in the contract that, they are not responsible for any misuse or misunderstandings created by their system. Oh, and by the way, they own your data forever. You relinquish all rights to all information captured by Flock forever. That one feels good too, doesn't it?
Mhm. Yeah, I don't know. I feel like it is a culture thing as well with the United States. We are not a nation that has been open or exposed to this kind of surveillance before. There are lots of other countries that you could argue, have been. Uh, China has a huge surveillance on their people. I know London is famous for their camera systems that are connected all throughout the entire city. And so, you know, you're going to get a lot of pushback from people in the United States because it's something that we've never encountered before.
Mm-hmm. There was an interesting experiment done at a prison. Don't ask YouTube late at night. It took me on a journey. But they put ankle monitors on every inmate in the prison. And all those little problems that you have in prisons where people gang up on each other, or there's, somebody gets cordoned off in a quiet, shadowy, blind spot from the cameras, and harm is. No, none of that happened because they know exactly where everybody is every second of every day. So all the problems in the prison just disappeared. Stuff like that is why we're getting these cameras everywhere, because there's total accountability for everything you do. My contention is our laws weren't written for that.
No, I don't think so.
The difference in that though is that, and again, this is kind of just getting into the basics of the situation prisoners are in. Prisoners have already lost rights because of choices they made, and they were, put into a court system and had a trial, and they were found guilty of whatever crime they committed that got them into that prison. So in that essence, they've already lost some rights. They've lost the right to privacy.
I didn't use the analogy by accident.
I know it's a thing that I have never in all my life, I have never expected that somebody in the prison system has a right to privacy. I think that's a right that they've given up so that they can serve their time, because they're obviously giving up other rights too. They have they don't have the right to move around like the way they want to. They don't have the right to be out in the world the way they want to. They are confined in a space, and there's a restriction of rights. And that's the whole point of the punishment, is to restrict rights. And then when they've served their time, they get some of those rights back. There may be other rights they still don't have. They still have to answer to a parole board and be monitored maybe for a time or whatever it is. But when you look at this flock system, it's almost like everybody's now guilty of something and we're giving up our rights.
Mm-hmm.
But nobody's done anything wrong yet. And it gets into, we're trying to prevent crime and stop crime, which I'm all for. I don't want people to commit crimes. I want people to be safe. I want I want to be safe. I want my family to be safe, my friends to be safe, but at the expense of now, like you said earlier, you know, with the lady that got in trouble with the package, that putting different events together in a way that they don't really go together. You know, is it coincidence or is it causality? You know, and I think more often than not, there's a lot of coincidences that would get people in trouble. And
Yep.
and that's why we have to have the checks and balances. We have to have somebody sitting there saying, well, the person wasn't even there at the time. Like, what's your proof? Like, you've only proven that her truck was in the neighborhood. That doesn't prove that she did it, you know?
The irony
And-
is, in that situation, she had proof in her hand when the police officer was confronting her on her doorstep, and he said, "I'm not even going to look at that."
And fortunately for her, she had
Unless
that,
she-
and that it did do that. But that's the problem, is that the law enforcement has, to a degree, they have to make judgments. I mean, they're not the judge and the jury, but in certain instances, they have to make a split-second judgment because of their safety or the safety of those around them. That doesn't mean that they need to just go off. And I really would like to think that in general, as a whole, that our law enforcement is much better than how I see it represented on YouTube. Because on YouTube, it's just, my feed is full of stuff of just how people have the feeling that law enforcement is overstepping their bounds and not understanding the laws that they're trying to enforce. And when they're wrong, double down. It's like, instead of, you know, oh, well, maybe we are wrong. It's no, we're doubling down because you're pushing against us, you're giving us resistance, you must be guilty of something. And that's not how technology, that's not the purpose of technology. The purpose of technology is to make our lives easier and to hopefully prove truth where there is truth, not to contrive truth the way somebody wants to see it or twist it. And that's getting into the other thing, because it's not just the fact that there's surveillance, because we've had surveillance for a long time. So ever since, you know, a closed circuit camera was able to be hung up either on a building exterior or inside a room or whatever, there has been surveillance. Someone has always been watching. You walk into a bank, there are cameras there. You're being watched. The difference is now we have AI to analyze it instead of a human being to analyze it. And we're putting a lot of trust now into AI to analyze that picture information and come up with judgments. And that's the
You're
problem.
getting ahead of me on this. You're getting ahead of me on this. I do want to hear from our viewers. You know, comment below. What's your thought on this? Because we definitely want to have this conversation. I would love to have, you know, these checks and balances put in. I like the idea of 3 strikes. What if we expand it to each state puts a law on all the towns that says if Flock gets it wrong and the police act on it in a wrong way, they lose their cameras. You know, like 10 strikes or something, or you get a couple mistakes and then you don't know how to use this toy. So you're going to lose the toy until you know how to behave with it. There should be training. There should be certification. There should be a certificate course that you can go through to get certified on these things. You can't use a speed radar gun in your car without being state certified, at least in most of the states that I know of. They don't just give you a radar gun, they give you training, and then they give you certification, and you can lose that certification. You have to get recertified. Why not have certification for these cameras? Where if you lose your certification, you lose, I don't know, a dock and pay or something. Or if you're certified, you get a raise in pay. And you gotta play a perfect game every time because you got a very, very powerful system at your fingertips. You should be on your A game, and you have incredible tools. And I don't know what the audits look like. I do know that if my name is run through the system, I should know about it. Maybe not in the minute if I'm guilty of a crime. So Flock says 30 days. Our data evaporates in 30 days.
But they have a
Why not tell me
perpetual
I was looked
license
at?
to it, don't they?
And maybe some of that audit or that checks and balances that, in order to run a search, that search has to be tied to either an open case file or a warrant, some type of a certified,
It is.
like a digital warrant. It has to be.
That is required.
It absolutely has to be required to tie to that, and there has to be a clear audit trail for every search in the system. It's not like someone can just sit down and, oh, I'm going to search up my ex-girlfriend, just see maybe what if, No, that is absolutely not allowed.
Do you know what the number one case in America is?
Number one case? No, what?
Mm-hmm. So in Flock, you've got to write down, you're looking for this license plate, this person, whatever, and you have to put in a case number.
Case number one.
The number one case in America is ASDF. Just 4 letters on the keyboard because it's quick to type and you're in. There's no accountability. Now, here's where I'm concerned, guys. If we, the people, don't act quick, Flock is going through and fixing some of these things themselves to try and calm down us peasants from doing what we're trying to do here today. They're putting in an automatic audit system to catch police that are abusing the system. Now, that's good. But I think it should be an external audit, not an AI system on the inside. Maybe the tool should be part of the system, and you should have a watchtower on top of it, making sure that those audits are completed and then released to the public. Mm-hmm. There's no reason these should be secret. Not after 30 days.
I mean, everything else is public record. Why not this?
I mean, Flock wants it both ways. They were getting Freedom of Information acted, and because it was tied with a legal case, and the company was saying, "Oh no, these are protected by we're a private company," and at the same time saying, "Oh no, these are police records." So they wanted both situations to function to where they didn't have to release to the public, but they could still release to the people that paid them.
It's like when you wanted something as a child and you go to your mom, "Hey mom, can I have this?" "No, go ask your dad." And you go to ask your dad, no, ask your mom. Kid doesn't know who to go to get a right answer. There's no accountability in the system we've got now. Speaking of, I heard an interesting argument. Mike, you've got a phone in your pocket that tracks you everywhere you go. Why are you worried about these cameras? Rhetorical.
Right, rhetorical.
Because I know where your head is at on that. Let me flip it on its head and say, that question is unfair, because if I've got a phone in my pocket that tracks me everywhere I go, why do you need the cameras? Go get the data from the phone.
With a warrant.
Yeah. This is another thing that they're trying to integrate in here, and they keep saying, oh, you have no expectation of privacy in public. They have all of these arguments that have already been debunked, and now with this one, where what they're trying to do is integrate into these cameras, or even be its own standalone thing, is a system that will scan for wireless signals that your phone is always emanating, and then it will identify that with a unique ID and store that. And they say, well, we're not tying it to you. We're just tying it to the car that you were in, and this other car that you were in, and then this place that you went and where you live. But it doesn't have your name tied to it. You know, it's the same argument as saying, like,
You,
I'm taking pictures of you. I'm not putting your name on the picture. Like, are you
you know where
kidding?
this came from? You know where this came from? We have a valid argument that you're guilty until you yourself prove you're innocent. Your car was driving down that road. But you, Jackson, was it you inside your car driving down it?
Right.
Now they can correlate that.
Mm-hmm. I know, but it's just ridiculous that they'll come out and say, like, well,
Yeah.
it's not tied to you. Like, then why are you doing it? And if it's not, you know, a click of a button away for you to give, you know, a list of probable people that, you know, it is. And I'm sure with enough data over the course of 30 days, you can get that probability pretty high that, you know, that phone was me or whatever. And so it's just, I mean, if you ask anybody, would you live in your house with a camera aimed at your bed and aimed at your living room and in your kitchen and every room in your house? You know, would you want to live like that? And there is nobody that will say that they don't care and mean it, right?
Mhm. You know, I heard something interesting today, and I'm going to be very cautious because this will absolutely demonetize us if I say it wrong. As a matter of fact, this podcast probably only gets 6 views. So if you're still watching, hit the like button, please. We need this to get out. What if you went door to door and recorded everybody's religion? There was a country that did that a long time ago, and because you had a specific religion, you were removed from your house and your possessions.
Mm-hmm.
And that's all I'm going to say about that. There comes a point at which you record information about somebody so much that it becomes a weapon in the wrong hands without checks and balances. Now, again, I don't think Flock is going anywhere, and that makes me sad. We need to push for change. We need to push for regulations. I would love to see this promise that they make of 30 days. If there's a data breach that shows that the data wasn't deleted in 30 days, half their revenue, not their profit, but they get fined half their revenue.
Going to put
Make
this
it
out
go
there.
out of business.
Not if, when.
Yeah. Well, we got to trust them that their promise of 30 days for the deletion is true. But when they say we're going to hold your data forever, I got concerns.
Yeah, and I feel like, I mean, just today we've only really been discussing like kind of the ethics and like, you know, the police side of these things. We haven't even really talked about, you know, just the idea in and of itself from like a cybersecurity standpoint. And I feel like Flock has got a pretty bad track record so far. They have been going back through and fixing a lot of the things that have been shown to be vulnerable, but I feel like I've continued to see that there's just more vulnerabilities that people are getting around. And then you think of that idea of, okay, well, now you have all this data about every single person in your city, and then you tie that into the national database. So now every single person in the United States is all into a single database. I mean, that alone is already, that's a huge security risk of just having that information. There will always be a way to get to it, and it's just a matter of time before someone figures out how.
We get a nation-state actor going after that information, they're going to be able to find the people that they want to find.
Where I'm at is if it's not a total and complete, and I mean 100% crystal clear picture of everything every one of us does, including our intentions, it's going to be left up to chance. It's going to be left up to interpretation or speculation on the viewer's perspective. There's a TV show that I love. I introduced my kids to it called Brain Games. And one of the ones that I get emotional on this one, it shows this guy just yelling at the camera, just absolutely berating the viewer for whatever. And then they flip the script and say, this person just lost his wife. She's been fighting cancer and she's no longer here. It gives context to the emotions. And without context, you can only speculate why this guy was yelling at you. We get a free pass when there's emotions and stresses in our lives. That's why the human condition is important. That's why we can't let AI do this, because AI doesn't even understand sarcasm. What other human things can we put in place? Artie, you're quiet. I know you're thinking on something.
I'm thinking on a different line, and that is that the human condition, we are not set up to constantly be watched. It really screws with our head. There was a psychologist who had an elf on a shelf, and she put it out and told her kids what it was. And
yes,
her kids turned into neurotic messes because of that thing. And as soon as she got rid of it, they started to act normal again. And this is, I believe it's called the panopticon effect. And if we are constantly under surveillance, it puts us in a heightened fight or flight type response in our nervous system. We are always on edge. You are going to see a lot more people having breakdowns in public if these continue to go up. If they know they're being watched, it's going to really mess with people's heads. And it's just not a way forward.
I think I mean, that's brilliant. That is a fantastic correlation between the human psychology of being monitored and the fact that we're being monitored. And Jackson's back.
Am I?
That was a
Oh,
bit of a
there we go.
blip there.
Yeah, sorry about that. Looks like the
So their surveillance isn't 100%. We just lost about 12 seconds of Jackson.
So
You'll
to
never know
continue
what
with
happened.
to continue a little bit with that, you brought up the thing with the ankle monitors. The panopticon is a prison, more or less, where none of the prisoners are actively, they have absolutely no privacy, like zero, constantly observed. And they don't do well psychologically. And it's
true.
Even like going to the bathroom, it's nice to have, 2 seconds, shut the door, do your business, get out. Without that, yes, they're prisoners, but I gotta state they're also human beings, and we can't expect them to react normally in such situations. Most of us are not in those situations.
It doesn't de-escalate them.
No, it doesn't. And I feel that that's going to be one of the side effects of more of these cameras going up. We see people going out and doing guerrilla tactics to take them down.
We do not condone that.
I'm not saying I condone it, but I do understand it.
Oh, no. People are getting stressed to their limits. And, I mean, it's not good. Here's something that I think people are not yet consciously aware of. they're subconsciously aware of. I wanted to touch this one at the very end of the conversation. Have you seen Minority Report, Jackson?
Yes. Is that that's the one where they have like the predicative system.
The precogs. The
Yes.
3 psychic that could predict the future.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Or 3 data centers. You can lead a path pretty good towards a predictive algorithm that is totally monitoring everybody and every move to say, this person is super stressed. They might do something they will regret. So let's stop them from doing that.
Yeah. I mean,
Might be
it's
good.
just
Might be bad.
we're headed in this dystopian future where I feel like there's so many movies out there that we've all seen, movies, books, I mean anything you can think of, that anytime mass surveillance like this is put in place, um the only way that anyone has ever thought that it'll go has been in the dumps. It has been abused and um shown to be an overall bad thing for humanity. And if that's all we can ever imagine it as being, then why are we headed that way, right? If that's the only future that anyone has ever seen with it, then I don't know why so many people are pushing for this to be a normality. Because all it takes is a couple of rule changes. I mean, let's say we implement everything we talked about in this podcast. We have already opened this door into mass surveillance. And while there might be some nice rules today, it doesn't mean that they'll always be there. Or just because we have some nice overlords today doesn't mean that they'll always be there.
You chose the right religion.
Hmm.
You just have to throw that in there. And again, I'm not going to explain any further than just that. So you got surveillance. It helps us solve crimes. We've got to find those guardrails. We've got to have this conversation. We've got to push back and say, until you meet these conditions, there will be no more cameras. And I think that's where the conversation needs to go across all levels of, across all conversations that are happening out with leadership, with state level. Anyway.
I think addressing it at the state level is going to be required because I'm seeing a lot of towns and cities that are ignoring the public discourse about this to put up the cameras. It's very much like with the data centers. I've been seeing videos of people getting arrested for going over like 5 seconds in their talk at a city council meeting. So we do need to...
Which that's a completely different problem. And those problems can be solved by voting correctly. It takes time. Again, that's part of the human condition. Those in power want these cameras. Those that are not in power are against these cameras. Again, make comment if I'm wrong. I would love to know a case where I'm absolutely wrong on that. Where somebody who doesn't have the control and want to keep themselves in control, where they want those cameras. Man, I got everybody stumped on this.
Mm-hmm.
Lots of brain juices flowing. I can hear it. Put some words to it.
I think it's just like you said, everybody just needs to get more involved. And I think that's another thing about recent years is I don't know that people are as involved in their civics as much as previous generations. I think that there's a lot of the newer generation that really takes it for granted, the ability to pick and choose the leadership, their civic leadership, and to really pay attention to the issues and to really vet those candidates that they want to see, in those offices to make the decisions that they want, that protect them. Obviously, not everybody agrees on everything, and so there's people who want to vote one way and people want to vote a different way, and there's a lot of people I'm sure out there that are all for Flock and think it's the greatest thing since sliced bread. They have a feeling of, for them, it's a feeling of security. For them, it's a feeling of that law enforcement is going to be able to do their job easier. And they feel that giving up certain rights is justifiable for that feeling that they get. But I also think that there's people that don't understand what it's like to not live in this country. I mean, we talked a little bit about that before, that there are other places where they don't have the same constitution, they don't have the same laws and rules that we have. And their citizens enjoy a very different way of life than what we enjoy. And so to not understand that, I think, skews the preference just a little bit.
Yeah. We were talking about China, highly surveilled place. I'll invite everybody that's looking, Google up the number of kidnappings in China. You can see tens of thousands of women have been kidnapped every year. And it's a trafficking thing. It's sad. It's unfortunate. And the amount of cameras they have over there hasn't stopped it. Mm-hmm. So, again, do your own research on that, because I'm just a guy on YouTube. But, oh my goodness, how many more cameras do we need to stop that? Cameras are not the answers. We got to monitor this. So let's spin this in a good direction, guys. It's helped us solve crimes. But I don't remember the last time a camera by itself went to court and won a case, right? It requires a police officer to go do that. It requires the judicial system to recognize a case that has been built and put a wrongdoer behind bars. We're moving too fast with this technology. We need to move it just as fast with this technology to get everybody on the same page, because as famous history dystopian leaders, dictators, show me the man, I'll show you the crime. All of us make mistakes at some point. You go 1 mile over the speed limit, 1 mile per hour over the speed limit. What is the penalty? Is it a ticket? Is it points on your license? You do lose your license? How many of us would be ineligible for driving because we accidentally went a little too fast? Once or twice. You ever cross the street, not at the corner, jaywalk? Yeah. What if the penalty was absolute every time? Our system isn't designed for this. We need to build the system that is ready for this, because we're not going to get rid of these surveillance tools. It's just a matter of fact.
Yeah, I think the question becomes, do you really want to know how imperfect a human is? If you start monitoring every single move and every single action anyone makes, there will be no one to work the prisons. Everyone will be in prison.
Well, that's why we got AI robots.
We'll be plugged into a giant tower to provide electricity for said robots. Actually,
I think
that is actually a very good example for this too, because within the Matrix, everybody was constantly being watched. And a lot of the people were, let's just say, not normal. The regular people walking around were, I mean, yeah.
Well, it worked out for them, didn't it?
Have you watched the last 3 movies?
And I think that's my problem, just to side shift this. We've talked about dystopias. We've talked about, we've used all of our science fiction to train these AI models on how to detect human behavior. I don't know a story where humans and robots live in harmony. Again, comment below if you know of one. Love to read that story where we did that. Dune, the big movie that just came out, and we got a third one coming out here soon. In their universe, the author decided that robots can't do the thinking. We need to rely on humans because people with robots enslaved other people, and it just was bad. Fascinating read. If you ever get into those 23 books of Dune, it's fascinating.
Yeah, I haven't read them yet, but I've done the all of the research because I wanted to watch the movies, and I do really like the movies, but in order to really understand those movies, you have to have some sort of context of the entire world, because there's not enough screen time in order to build that world that is Dune. But I remember that was one thing that as I was reading about it that I really liked was, the emphasis on that humans do all of the decision making and the thinking, and like that's where power is. The power is in the mind, and he takes it to, I think, an extreme. But it's interesting to think about that. If you put more emphasis on what a human can do rather than what a computer can do.
There's an interesting one, and this is germane to our conversation the last hour. Frank Herbert started the story with one premise. It's not that power corrupts, because that is true. It's 100% true. Power will corrupt the uncorruptible. And absolute power does the same thing. It's more of, his story was written that corruptible people will seek power.
Interesting.
It's an interesting mind game. Interesting thought exercise to go through. I don't want to put any correlations between that universe and ours, because that changes things. Well, speaking of changing things, how about we lighten the tone here and talk about something way less grim? How about MySpace?
Yeah.
I thought you said less grim.
I thought I'd never hear about MySpace ever again. Boy, was I wrong.
It was all the rage, Jackson, back in the day. All of us could get a free website that was ours. Our name, our moniker would be embroiled in the myspace.com. And it's mine. I can do what I want with it. It taught a generation how to code.
I would say GeoCities did that more.
Any other academic program can't hold a candle to the number of non-computer literate people that learned how to code.
And it showed.
Yeah. Oh, it was
I never had a MySpace page, but I knew people who did. And every so often they'd be like, hey, go check out MySpace, my page on MySpace and everything. I go check it out. And you want to talk about sensory overload. Oh my gosh. Like, it's one of those things. One of my mottos is, just because you can doesn't mean you should. And in a lot of cases it was just the opposite. It was because they could, they did.
Yes. And it was wrong. So I think I was responsible for a wallpaper site. Have you ever seen Digital Blasphemy?
I think so. Sounds familiar.
Yeah, I think I was the one responsible for him putting in the block of hot linking to those graphics to put on your MySpace page. I taught a bunch of my friends who then taught their friends who then taught their friends. And then one day it's like, no hot linking allowed. It's like, okay.
Oh boy.
In retrospect, we used a lot of that poor guy's bandwidth.
So MySpace is coming back. Why?
Well, so the owners of MySpace say that they plan to bring it back, but they don't have any plans per se. They're just saying, we own the brand, we haven't let it die, or well, they don't want to let it, go away forever, right? But they want to bring back some sort of a social media site without algorithms, without AI, without all this stuff. That's what they're claiming. They don't know what that looks
Ooh.
like yet.
Are
They
are
want-
these the owners? They're the original owners, or has it been sold and traded a couple times?
I
MySpace
wanna say they're
currently
the
is
original.
owned by a Russian corporation that runs it as a music site. So it's the creators
Well,
of
that
MySpace.
Well, that reassures me.
Let's see. Originally, it was founded by Tom Anderson and Chris DeWolf. But let's see. I think
Tom's got more
it's under-
friends than all of us put together.
You know why he
For
made him everyone's first friend, right?
Yeah.
It's because he had the philosophy of everybody should have at least one friend.
Okay,
So then
I
he
don't think
ended up
it's
with
not
what, 16 million?
not the original founders. It's two guys that looks like Tim and Chris Vanderhook, co-founders of Viant Technology. They are the ones who apparently own it. Oh, they bought the original. Oh, there it is. Bought the original social media site in 2011 and still own the brand. So since
that was a long
2011,
time ago.
they've been the owner.
15 years. Wow.
It's fascinating. There's been a push last little bit to get all of our stuff into basically 5 websites. If somebody described the internet it's just 5 websites that are copies of each other. Facebook, Instagram, just those, all the memes, all the shares, all the content is just copied across that or to all the other of the 5 websites. MySpace was a generation of your own personal website. Everything was separate. You could link up, but it's your own page. And I think that generation of the internet needs to come back. I miss that generation.
I think that's becoming a more popular thing. And I've actually seen, I think Squarespace is the one who was advertising for a little while there. They were like, you should buy your domain name because, one day you might want it for yourself. You might have your own website. And I've just generally seen a slight more interest, really not a ton, but a very slight more interest in people wanting to make their own websites. So I think it could be on the rise, and maybe that's why they haven't announced anything. I think they're probably waiting for the right moment and looking to figure out, what that platform looks like, because obviously it's not going to be what it once was. But I think the general interest in, people having their own space, people, having their own website that's totally theirs, just about them. I think there's like maybe a 5% increase in people that are interested in that.
I would actually promote my kids building their own MySpace page. You don't get fed content from pages that you don't want, especially after Facebook was caught tweaking the algorithm to increase contention just to maintain viewership. Or, you know, there was a whistleblower. Speaking of whistleblowers, congressional investigation. This whistleblower said that Facebook was feeding makeup tips to girls that had self-image issues, or diet tips, just to increase the angst that those kids had. Never mind the psychological damage that happens. It's just going to keep them engaged, and you can sell that advertising space at a premium. Well,
Yep.
if you've got your MySpace page, that's not force-fed into your page. You don't see the advertisements. You don't see the sponsored results. I miss that internet. Speaking of things
that's
I miss,
a long time ago. Good grief.
I heard a rumor, and I gotta track this one. If anybody knows about it, let us know. WinAMP is coming back. It used to be the MP3 player before iPods, before Spotify, before any of that stuff. You load WinAMP, you put your library on there, and you play. It's a elegant interface. It's got a play button. It's got a stop button. It's got a next button. I mean, it's super revolutionary, right? Everybody had it. And the creators, or the people who owned the property, infected it with ads and improved it, truly demonstrated encrapification.
Mm-hmm.
It went from king of the hill to obscurity.
I can't tell you how much I yearn for the world to go back, especially in the audio world. Like, I want my cool stereo in my car. I have one, but I don't know how much longer this car is going to survive. And I am going to be so sad if I finally get to the point where the car that I own has a stupid flat screen in it. Because
Yes.
I love my dials, I love my buttons, I love my knobs. I like a piece of equipment that does the one thing that it's supposed to do very well. I am not a multi-tool guy. I think we've talked about this before. I despise multi-tools generally. Sometimes they come in handy, but if I don't need a multi-tool, I'm not gonna use it. So I want my audio receiver. I want my audio receiver in my car to only do that, and I want it to do it perfectly. And right now it does. But I'm afraid of the day when, fortunately, I have to retire that car, and you better believe I will rip that audio system out. But
It just kind of mess with you, Jackson.
I mean,
That's still a screwdriver.
I mean,
that one doesn't count.
We've definitely talked about this before, and my frustration with software suites that are just like we bundle it all together in just one big application. It's like, look, if I wanted to pixel edit, I would get a pixel editor. If I want to word process, I'll get a word processor. You know, I'm not going to go get just the one tool and do all of it right there, because I want the specialized tools for pixel editing when I'm using them. I don't want other stuff getting in the way.
Mike,
It
would you
drives me
like it?
nuts.
Because I feel like the plus side to that is, like, it's all in the same editor, and you don't have to like export a file, re-import, export again to the next tool. So, like, would you like it if you had UIs that were very clearly like separated out? Like if you wanted to say do your pixel editing and then later do, some, I don't know, your color correction or whatever things, like, would you like it if it was so compartmentalized that you click on like the pixel editing tool and it feels like that's all it does?
Yeah.
Maybe, I don't know. The thing is that my experience with programs and applications is that when they start to try to do too much, then it's more things that can go wrong.
Yeah,
You know,
I agree with you.
WinAMP.
it's like
But
if I'm narrowed in and I'm focused on my pixel editing for my photograph, let's say whatever, I'm not going to worry about corrupting my Word document or my page layout or whatever is going on in the other application kind of thing, because it's a completely separate file.
Yeah,
And
that's
it's
true.
taking up, and I might not even have it open. I might be just doing just the photographs, today, let's say. And then tomorrow I will then bring in the photographs and I'll put them in the page layout, but at that point they're already color corrected. They're already tweaked. Everything's done that I need to have done on them. And then I can focus on the typesetting, the page layout, which is a totally different set of tools. And I need that to be running as efficiently as possible.
Yeah,
you don't
you're right.
want a word processor that's 1.5 gigs of RAM.
Gosh. People who use Word to do page layout are a very unique breed of people. I'm not saying it can't be done.
I'm one of them.
It's not, it doesn't even speak the right lingo and jargon in the language, And so it's like, that makes it, for someone like me who knows what they're looking for, I can't find the setting because it's not worded the right way, and it's not categorized the right way. Like I would expect it to find under this menu, but it's not. I have to go right click on this and pull up this, and it's just, and
I think
word processors do have a use of. There are times when I do word processing for the tools that the word processor is good at. It is good for typing in a bunch of text and managing a large number of pages of just continuous text. And I totally enjoy doing that. And that's totally fine for me, because then I will export it to a TXT file or if I'm feeling really spicy, a rich text format, and then I'll put it in my page layout program. So there you go.
So I think you stumbled across a fantastic analogy, Mike, of why software engineers shouldn't write accounting software.
That's probably true, because they're not accountants.
No. It's like using Word to do page layouts.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's the companies need to do a better job of connecting the software engineers to the actual end users.
And that does remind me. I remember back in high school, there was a kid, I think he was a little older than me. He graduated before me. But I remember he was in my computer science classes. So we're all in there learning to program computers together. But I remember he had kind of ventured off onto his own little side quest of learning. I can't remember what it was. I want to say it was some type of a database system, and forgive me, this is like years and years and years ago, and so I don't remember the details, but his dad was an accountant. I remember he told me that the reason he was learning it was to help his dad make some accounting type tool, not like a full package of accounting software per se, but there's like some specific tool that his dad needed that the applications of that time just were not fulfilling for him. And so he decided he was going to take it upon himself. Like, I'm going to learn this so that I can make the tool that my dad needs. And so at that point, he had the resource of his dad to train him and educate him on accounting and what the exact problem was and what was needed, But for any of us to just go and do it on like, ooh, I think I'll make some accounting software. Like, I would hope the first thing we would do is go talk to an accountant. Like, what makes good accounting software? You know, and that's the challenge for any programmer, is that you can't just come up with an idea thinking you're going to go into an industry. I think most people already have to know something about that industry to know and identify what the problems are. You know, so let's look at the original programmers who wrote WinAMP that, you know, started this whole topic in the beginning, that they saw a need, they knew something about audio files and made a tool that anybody who is into audio could appreciate, love, and use. And it did that one thing perfectly.
Wow, I sparked a memory. Mike, do you remember ID3 V2 tags?
Maybe.
MP3s gives you the extreme long names that you can put.
Oh,
It's kind of the original metadata in
yeah.
MP3s. Those were cool
Yeah,
days.
that's right. Yeah.
Well, speaking of cool days, wish we were back there because we wouldn't have the flock cameras breathing down our necks every corner. Stay involved, guys. We definitely need to spread the word and control the narrative that's being fed to us, because we the people are in charge, not the people in charge. Till next time, I'm John.
I'm Mike.
I'm Jackson.
Power corrupts, but solar power corrupts heliocentrically.
Words to live by. Have a good night, everybody.